I was doing some training this week, and in the introduction of one of the modules, it talked about some very basic information about how gestational age is calculated, and it got me thinking. This is something I have just assumed you already knew, but I don't know that I've ever really explained it, especially one very odd little thing about it that you may not even know. What is that thing? Well, you may have already guessed, but in case you haven't, stick with me. Let's dive in and find out. Review time today comes from Sam I Am, with lots of M's there, from back in March. The title says, Great podcast. Lori has a great way to express the best way that God designs us. She also helped me look into better forms of insurance, or, well, it's not called insurance. I think she's talking about Samaritan Ministries. Better ways to birth naturally, and many more things. She also helped me see that it is okay to have a hospital birth. I am pregnant with my first child and am preparing for a natural birth at the hospital. The hospital is known to be a good hospital, and I know someone that works in the maternity department. I will also explore the hospital details, and my husband is able to help me advocate for myself. I hope in the future I can home birth, but right now my house is too small, and I'd be more comfortable with my first child to have hospital access. Anyways, I will say that Lori has a lot of commercials, which does bother me a bit. Great informative podcast, though. Well, Sam, I am. I hope that you have listened to some of my previous episodes about hospital birth. I'm not going to go into that too much right now. I think you've probably already heard it. But I want to address your last little part. I want to address this for everybody really quickly before we get into the content, because she says that I have a lot of commercials. Well, first of all, if you are hearing any commercials on my podcast that are not from me directly reading them, I didn't put them there. I'm not sure if some apps might add them after I produce my content. I have no control over that. I have not added any commercials like that personally, and I am certainly not getting anything from them. So I apologize if there are any commercials that are coming up that are not for me. If you were talking about me talking about my course and the things that I offer and calling those commercials, well, yes, I do tell you about those, because how else will you know they exist? That is how I try to help pay the bills in my home. That is how I share deep, how would I call it? Deep, comprehensive. Couldn't think of the word. Deep, comprehensive information with those of you who are really interested in doing this the right way. So yeah, I talk about it, and I talk about it every week, because every week I have new listeners and I want to make sure you know it's available. But any other content that you're hearing advertisements for, I have no control over it. And I'm sorry if any of the apps are putting those on there, because I didn't put it there. Okay. With that being said, if you have not left me a review yet, please do. Head over to Apple Podcasts, leave me a quick 5-star written review. Helps me so much, encourages me so much, and also helps me find other moms like you who are looking for this kind of content. Every week I have new people contacting me, telling me that they were looking for natural birth podcast or a Christian-based podcast, and they finally found me. And so when you leave reviews, that's how Apple Podcasts and other podcast apps know that this is a podcast worth listening to. So that's that. Let's get into our content for today. Due dates are something that everybody has heard of, and I know that. This is probably, seems like it's pretty basic, but if there's one thing that I've learned, it's you can't really assume that anything is known. And I got to thinking, I don't really think I've ever truly talked about how a due date is calculated, nor what a gestational age is. And that may seem really basic, and it is, but I want to make sure you understand it for yourself. Everybody has a general idea of what these are and what they mean, but there are some details about them that I bet you don't know, and they're really important so that you can keep the whole concept of due dates and gestational age in context. Now, I know that most of you know that I don't like to call these due dates. I like to call them guess dates, because that's what they are. Estimated is in the title of them. Estimated due date, estimated gestational age. But a lot of times the medical world kind of likes to skip over that estimated word and treat them like they are written in stone. They're not. I like to call them guess dates, and you know that. But I still want you to understand how they're calculated, and I want you to understand what they're talking about so that you're fully informed. Like I said, I was going through some training, and it was about dating pregnancies, and they went over the very basics of how to get the most accurate gestational age calculation. Because see, your due date determines the baby's gestational age. It's all based on what the due date is. So the closer you get to your due date, the higher the gestational age, and vice versa. So when you're really early in your pregnancy, the gestational age is a low number, obviously. As you get closer to your due date, that number approaches 40 and maybe even goes past 40. But remember, that key word is estimated. All right, estimated, because you can never be 100% sure of the exact age. See, the little fact that I mentioned, that little thing that I bet a lot of you don't know, I want to get into that. See, estimated gestational age is calculated from the first day of your last period, okay? So that means it's calculated from that very first day that you start bleeding on your period. So what does that mean? Well, when you start bleeding, you are clearly not pregnant at that moment. That's the whole thing about a period, right? When you get a period, you know you're not pregnant. And you don't become pregnant until you ovulate around 14 days later. That varies based on your cycle, but around 14 days later, when your egg and the sperm of your husband meet and conception happens, that is when you become pregnant. So what does that mean? Well, it means that when you find out you're pregnant, when you miss that very next period, and you're told that you're 4 weeks pregnant, which we're going to talk about that in a second, what that means, you're actually only 2 weeks pregnant. Okay, so your gestational age, all the way through your entire pregnancy, is including 2 weeks that you weren't even pregnant. Did you know that? Did you know that when you're like 16 weeks, you're really only 14 weeks, and when you're 38 weeks, you're really only 36 weeks? It's kind of confusing, right? But this is the way that the gestational age and due dates have been calculated forever. And the reason is because essentially no one knows for sure when they get pregnant, the very moment or the very day that we get pregnant. It's just about impossible to know for sure. When you ovulate, let's say on a Tuesday, let's say 1 week on a Tuesday, you ovulate. That egg is released, but you actually may not have a conception happen until maybe Thursday, maybe even Friday. There's some studies that say sperm can last as much or can live as many as 5 days. So it can be 5 days later. So just because you might happen to know what day you ovulated, you still don't for sure know what day you conceived. And just because maybe you know what day you and your husband were intimate also doesn't mean that you conceived on that day, because it may have taken a day, 2 days before the egg and the sperm finally find each other. We just don't really know. And that is why we calculate due dates and gestational age from the first day of the last period, because it's a standard date and it's just a little bit easier to track. But it's just kind of funny to think about the fact that your pregnancy date, like the day you find out you're pregnant, you've been pregnant for maybe 2 weeks, but we call it 4 weeks, and that goes for all of the rest of your pregnancy. But across history, this is the way it's been done. But here's the kicker. And this is what I need you to realize. The medical system really doesn't think that you're all that good at keeping up with stuff. And for good reason, honestly, because a crazy amount of moms just don't really know what day their last period started on. And I get it. I mean, we're busy. You got kids, running around. You got jobs. You got husbands wanting stuff. There's just a lot going on. And sometimes it's easy to lose track of time. I get all of that. But this one little detail, if you can start keeping up with this one little detail, it's going to help you have a pregnancy that is more intervention free. And here's why. When you know the first date of your last menstrual period, then you can figure out your due date without having to have an ultrasound first trimester. So if you're wanting to avoid that first trimester ultrasound, which I hope that you are after some of the other episodes that we've had, that one little detail can help you avoid that, because it removes that need to know how far along you are. If you go into a doctor, you go into the midwife's office, and you stumble around when they ask you what was the first day of your last menstrual period, if they sense that you're not really sure, they're going to want to order that ultrasound. And I don't love them. I don't love these ultrasounds in the first trimester. But they are very accurate for determining dates in the first trimester. That's just the truth. I don't love them. I don't necessarily trust their safety. but they are accurate in that first trimester. And so if you walk in and you don't know your last period and they can't figure out your due date for sure, they're going to want to do that ultrasound so that they've got better information. So just by getting in the habit of writing down what day of the month you start bleeding each month, that one little detail alone will help you avoid interventions that you probably don't want. So now let's talk about how to track it a little bit further. One thing you need to know, or one thing you need to write down, is that date that you start bleeding. Absolutely. And at a bare minimum, I want you to start writing that down, either on your phone, you can make a mark on a calendar, you can even go so far as to start tracking all the things we're going to talk about next on an actual chart. But whatever it is, get in the habit, whether it's an app, your phone, a piece of paper, whatever it is, get in a habit of writing down the first day of your period every month. This is going to help with a lot of things, like I mentioned. But there's more than just your due date that it's going to help with. See, your cycle length also plays into your due date. If you have a standard 28-day cycle, then that's pretty straightforward. But if you have a shorter or a longer cycle, maybe a 26-day cycle or a 30-day cycle, knowing that also impacts your due date. And so it can help you. It can help you add a few days, maybe push your due date a little bit later, so that you're not getting pushed for all the post-date interventions towards the end. Just by writing down that first day of bleeding, you will know your cycle length, because cycle is measured from day one of this period to day one of the next period. Make sense? So once you write down the first day of your bleeding each month, you're going to figure out what your average cycle length is just by having those things written down. If you want to take it a step further, you can also start tracking things like your basal body temperature. That basal body temperature is basically measuring what your body's temperature is after you've slept through the night before your feet hit the ground. Okay, it's a very accurate measurement, and if you're going to do that, you need to get one of the thermometers that measures to 2 decimal places, because very small changes are what indicate when you have ovulated. Now, I did say have ovulated, not when you are ovulating, because when that spike happens, you actually ovulated like 2 days before. So you can't really go by it as far as either trying to get pregnant or trying to prevent pregnancy, but it is a marker for you to know which day you ovulated. Now, if you take that information and combine it with writing on a calendar when you and your husband were intimate together, every time making a little mark for that, or maybe on a chart like I mentioned before, every time making a mark for that, you're going to start to get some better information for determining due dates and determining gestational age. All these things add up together to complete the picture to where you don't need an ultrasound to know when your baby is, quote, due, or when your guest date is. One other additional piece of information that you can add is cervical mucus. And now I'm not going to go much further into detail with this, because there's really a whole lot to this. There's people who teach entire courses. There's books about this. There's all kinds of information out there. You can get on the internet and you can learn about how to fully track your cycle and learn all kinds of things about your hormone levels and about, you know, when you ovulated and the changes your body goes through. And I'll encourage you to learn all that. It's really, really interesting. But suffice it to say, all this information, when you get in the habit of tracking it, or at the very least, when you get in the habit of tracking that first day of your period, it is going to serve you well when you finally are pregnant and you're trying to figure out what your due date is or what your guest date is. Okay, so now I've gone through all of that. Now I want to show you how you actually calculate your gestational age. Okay, I'm gonna try to get a little fancy here. Okay, we're gonna do it on my computer screen. I'm gonna share the screen. It's the first time I've done this on a video podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, by the way, if you're not watching on YouTube and you ever watch YouTube, if you could just head over there and subscribe, helps me a lot. And all of my podcasts now are in video format, or just about all of them. So you can go actually see me work this out for you. So let me see if I can switch this over. And what you're gonna see here is actually a little bit of a preview. I don't know why it's grayed out like that. A little bit of a preview of what is to come, something I'm working on for you. But for today, just kind of look at what we got here, and I'm going to help you figure out how to figure out your due date. So the first thing you need to do is to write down the date of your last period. So we're just going to say it's today. Okay, obviously nobody knows yet if they're pregnant for this cycle, but we're going to say it today, and we're going to calculate it based on today. So today is as that I'm recording this is April 16th, 2025. All right, next step, you add 1 full year. So that's April the 16th of 2026. Next step, you subtract 3 months. Now, 3 months doesn't mean 3 months to the calendar day, because we know some months have 30 days, some have 31, some have 28. So that's not a very accurate way to do it. So really what we're talking about when I say 3 months is 90 days. And 90 days is 1 day short of 13 weeks. And I don't remember, hang on, I've got to hop over to my calendar, and I don't think you're going to be able to see it. But that was January the 14th. I figured that out before I started. So 2026. And then the last step is that you're going to add 7 days. So that gives you January the 21st, 2026. So if today you start your period, and if in 2 weeks you conceive a baby, your estimated due date, if you have 28-day cycles, as you see here, your estimated due date is going to be January 21st of 2026. Now, if you have a cycle that's longer than 28 days, for every day longer than 28 days it is, you're going to add 1 day. Okay, so if you have 29-day cycles, then your due date becomes January 22nd. If you have 30-day cycles, then it's going to become January 23rd. Make sense? If your cycle is less than 28 days, so let's say you have 27-day cycles, then your due date becomes January 20th. Okay. Other factors that can play in, if it's your first pregnancy, add 3 days. Now, most practices aren't going to like that, but hopefully your midwives will. They'll recognize that that really is true, because first babies usually take longer. If you're high BMI, your due date's going to be later. If you're younger, your due date's going to be later. All these things play in for various reasons based on different studies that have been done. So if you want to get into those details, you can, but that is a starting point, okay? So you can do the calculation like I did here, okay? Now, I want to show you something else. There are, of course, lots of apps and lots of resources out there that can help you to figure out your due date. So I want to show you, this is on perinatology.com, which is a pretty cool little site that a lot of us midwives and OBs use. I'm going to go to the due date calculator, and we're going to put in, first day of last menstrual period. We're going to do April 16th. This is if you don't want to go through the calculation. And then 2025, and then we're going to calculate, and boom, estimated due date is January 21st. Obviously, this isn't taking into account all the other things we talked about. This is just your basic, straightforward 28-day cycle. But here's the other thing. It gives you an estimated date of conception, when you can first hear a heartbeat reliably, when your first trimester ends, all kinds of really cool things that you can know. One more thing I want to show you that's pretty cool here on perinatology.com. Now, you know, there's lots of apps out there that will show you, like, you know, your baby's the size of a grapefruit, your baby's the size of a grape, you know, whatever. But what's really cool, this website is evidence-based, it is research-based, okay? So you know that what you're reading is more reliable, shall we say. All right, so we're going to put the estimated due date. What we say it was January 21st, I think, 2026. All right. And we want to know what the gestational age is on today. So when you calculate that, obviously 0 weeks, 0 days, because it's just now starting now. Let's say we want to know on June the 16th of 2025, we want to know what our gestational age will be. So you calculate that, and you will be 8 weeks and 5 days on that date. So what you can do, you can come here to first trimester and click week 8. And go down here, and you can see exactly what's going on with pictures in some cases. It's really, really cool. So all kinds of resources there for you. There's also the old school way of figuring out due dates. If you have one of these, or you know anybody that has one, these are called OB Wheels. I think there's even an app called OB Wheel that you can do this with. But if you put in, again, if I put in April 16th, it gives me January the 21st, and I'm not going to try to show it to you. It's so small, you're not going to be able to tell. In this particular wheel, different wheels show you different things, but this particular one will show you Like if you want to know what date you'll be 35 weeks, you can put the 35 on here and it'll show you that in December, December the 17th, you're going to be 35 weeks. So a neat little tool. You can get these in different places. I guess they still make them. I mean, you can see mine actually still has my maiden name on it. It says Lori Cooper. So I've had this one a long time, and I have another one at home that's also got my maiden name on it. So it's been a while. But there's all kinds of resources. That's my point, is that there's a lot of stuff out there to help you own your pregnancy. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to own your care. I want you to not have to always rely on somebody else to tell you what's going on. I want you to know for yourself. These are things that you can know, and you don't need a degree to figure them out. Learning this is just one skill that I want you to learn while you're pregnant. And this is actually a little bit of a glimpse into my online Christian childbirth education course, because I teach this as the first skill in that course. And so if you enjoyed learning this, you're going to really enjoy that course, because I teach you so many things. And like I said, it's the first skill I teach there. There's so many skills, there's so much knowledge that you're going to gain in that 20 hours of content. I know 20 sounds like, whoa, that's a lot, but it's spread out over 8 different modules. You can start it and stop it as you need to, because it's on demand. And I know it sounds like a lot, but you are certainly not going to walk into any situation that you don't feel prepared for. You're going to feel confident and well prepared. And that is my goal, is that you are not scared, that you are informed, you're prepared, you know exactly what you want, and you don't have to worry about being blindsided by things where they're trying to pull things on you that you don't want. You know what you want. You know how to advocate for yourself. You know how to labor naturally. You know how to manage the contractions. You know how to manage breastfeeding. You know how to manage the whole process. You'll have all the tools in your toolbox when you join that course. And right now, I'm giving away the first module of the course absolutely free. So if you don't like my commercials and you're like, oh, she's just trying to sell something, I'm giving it to you for free right now. I want you to try it out for yourself, to see for yourself if you like it, because I don't want you to join the course if it's not for you. I don't want you in there if it's not your cup of tea. But having 7 days of access to that first module is going to help you see, is it your cup of tea? Is this the kind of course that you're looking for to help you prepare for the birth that you want? So if you want to try out that free trial, you can go to go.yourbirthgodsway.com/course free trial. But for those of you who are serious about having the birth that God intended for you, and you're really ready to know what you need to know to rock your natural birth, go on and join the course so that you can get serious about owning your care and walk with confidence into your birth and throughout your pregnancy. You're gonna be so thoroughly prepared. There is no course out there that prepares you more fully than this one. So I want you to join us. If you're ready to get started, if you're serious and you know this is for you, head over to go.yourbirthgodsway.com/CEC, or you can just go to go.yourbirthgodsway.com and scroll down a little bit and click on the course button and get signed up. It's all there for you. Either route you want to go, whether you want to try the free trial or just go ahead and get started, they're both there. And I just look forward to getting to know you there. I look forward to you joining in the live question and answer sessions, which are part of the course. You're just going to learn so much, and I can't even describe it. Seriously, there's so much in there. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Otherwise, I will see you right back here next week.